So I got a laser cutter because goodness knows I need more hobbies like I need hemorrhoids. In this video, I'm going to cover why I got a laser cutter in the first place, what brand and model I decided to go with, and then all of the beginner tips for how to do your first laser project with that particular laser cutter. Because I would rather people not go through what I did in the first 24 to 48 hours of owning said laser. So let's go over why I decided to get a laser cutter out of the blue. And no, I can't blame my ADHD on this one. I can blame my husband. My husband has wanted a laser cutter for a really long time now. This is something that both of us really did have an interest in, but the costs were just prohibitive. You know, it's like you either go for an industrial grade laser that takes up half of your garage, or you go with a desktop laser, most known as Glowforge, that is pretty much astronomical in terms of pricing to get the features you need to do the crap that you want to do. The other thing that I really wanted to do was make stupid stuff like this. Look at that T-Rex a-fiddling. Or you can have a charcuterie board that says Chateau Picard. Or dice boxes. Yeah, so anyway, we have some ideas. And I've already been doing a ton of things. Coasters, bag tags, key fobs, things like that. You know, just little things to experiment. And it's not like either of us went into this thinking, yeah, we're going to make more money. Because I have so many hobbies that I monetize, maybe I should just have one for me. So now we can go over selecting a laser. We made the decision to go into laser cutting and engraving. So now we need to start looking. We were considering it, but of course, that massive price point on the Glowforge Pro being about $9 grand in the US is just a bit too much. I mean, who spends that kind of money on a hobby, right? Let's be honest with ourselves. When you are thinking, I'm going to get into laser cutting and engraving, the first brand name that comes to mind is Glowforge. And that's fine, and that's great. But there were some aspects of Glowforge that I didn't really want. One, their software is proprietary and only works on a web page. So if they ever went out of business, I would have a $9,000 brick. That's not cool. That's kind of the route that Cricut was going to go. And if you recall, the community rioted over it and Cricut backed way down. And now they actually have offline software that you can install and use with your Cricut cutters. That's awesome. Glowforge hasn't gotten that memo yet. And the other thing is you can't use popular software like LaserBurn. It's not compatible. There's no USB driver available to have Lightburn be able to communicate with your Glowforge. So again, brickifying. I really just can't do that. The other thing, like I mentioned before, is the price point. That's a bit steep. It's kind of hard to explain the difference between a 10 needle embroidery machine purchase, which was about $14,000, and then getting something like a laser cutter for, the $9,000. It takes up a lot more space. It has to be in the garage. I know they call them desktop lasers, desktop being super loose. It ain't fitting on a desktop, just as a FYI. You'll see when I show you. It's huge. So you need space for it, but you also need really good ventilation. You need to be pumping those fumes out. Sorry, I had to take a quick break between recordings to go get an expensive coffee after explaining why I wasn't going to spend $9,000 on a Glowforge. So if I didn't get a Glowforge, what did I end up getting anyway? We knew we wanted something that was on par with the Glowforge Pro. We wanted those specs, those power specifications, the CO2 laser, and we wanted to make sure that the bed sizes were comparable since a lot of laser cutting and engraving supply companies sell with the Glowforge in mind. So that's typically 19 inches wide by 12 tall. Rawr, it's a rectangle. That's when I stumbled upon Sooo I, and the Gweikecloud Pro II. There's a 2 behind that. I didn't even realize that when I ordered it because the website didn't specify the 2 because it was so new. So Gwe is a company that is based out of China. They have been producing industrial grade lasers for about 17 years now. So with that kind of experience backing them, I trust and thought that this would be a good idea. I made sure to go look at reviews by other influencers that are available all over YouTube. That's why this video is not going to be a review. I'm a beginner. I have not been doing this very long. So this video hopefully will help people who are like teetering on the edge of considering getting a laser cutter, who don't know what they can do with it and don't know the struggle bus of getting going. What I will say is I got this machine and I basically set it up out of the box and was ready to go. There are a couple things that you can calibrate, like the camera, but I come from an era where we didn't have fancy cameras on top of our embroidery machines, so I had to figure out creative ways to get around that. So with that, let's go into some of the specs. If you look at the specifications on the website, you can clearly see the differences between the Glowforge and the Gweikecloud. They're actually fairly on par with each other, but the biggest thing for me, honestly, was the price. There is a $6,000 difference between the Glowforge Pro and the Gweikecloud Pro II. 6,000. That's a lot of doll hairs. Now, if you're worried about shipping and how long it takes to get the machine, because if you're like me, I require instant gratification, I ordered it and it was here in 3 business days. So they do have US-based distribution centers. That was really comforting to know. The other concern that someone may have is support. How do you get support? If everybody at Gwe is located in China, how do I get support when I'm in the United States and I speak English? They use WhatsApp and didnt. These are 2 applications you can use to communicate without having to pick up a phone and have international costs associated with said call. They have 24-hour support in these applications. When you purchase your Gweikecloud, you get assigned a sales representative, and that person creates a special chat room just for you and technicians. And so they check up on these chats 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I won't lie about the beginner experience. The first 24 hours were hard. I thought that something was wrong with the machine, and I had bought a brick, a giant 250-pound brick. A lot of it was user error. The other is their USB driver for light burn. So let me dig into that real quick. So like in machine embroidery, there is software for, generically creating embroidery files, Embird, and you've got Hatch, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of the same way with these laser cutters, except that you have to have software that directly talks to your machine to tell it what to do. So it's not just you compile a file and send it off to the machine and it starts doing the thing. It's actually sending commands. So because of that, it requires a special USB driver so that Lightburn, which is a third-party application, can directly talk to the Gweikecloud. The Gweikecloud driver was written with version 1.2 or lower in mind with Lightburn. And as a new purchaser and a new to cutting and engraving with a laser kind of person, I downloaded the latest version, which is 1.3. So the drivers were not compatible and causing problems. And thankfully, I'm a software engineer, and it took me like a few hours to figure out that maybe I should try their software instead. So my workflow now is basically to design everything in Lightburn. Then I export to a DXF file. I import the DXF file into the Gweikecloud offline software, and I only use the Gweikecloud offline software to tell the machine what to do. I have found that the cut lines and the engraving scans have been a lot cleaner and more accurate. This is not a burn against light burn, but it's just because it's not their fault. It's just to give a heads up that if you get the Gweikecloud, that you're probably going to want to hold off on the USB driver, just to be safe, because I wasted a ton of materials and I kind of set cardboard on fire. Okay, that's enough talking from my sewing room. How about we pop out to the garage and I can actually show you the machine and make a coaster so you can see what the heck is going on and why I can't stop burning things. Welcome to my garage. Obviously, I'm going to be wearing a headset and using a microphone here instead of my professional setup that is available upstairs. So the audio is going to sound a little different, but otherwise, let's get on with the video. Ta-da! Yes, the Gweikecloud is sitting on the floor. The reason it's sitting on the floor is because it is 250 pounds and I cannot lift it up and over. We do actually have a nice table for it. I just can't lift it. So eventually it will come off of the floor and up onto a table, but for now, just bear with me. We've only had it 2 weeks. So let's go over this pretty quickly. So the profile is huge, as you can tell. So now you understand what I was saying when I was joking about it being a desktop laser, because there's no way this is fitting on a desk in the house. So very, very important to note is it comes with literally everything you see here. It came with the honeycomb tray in the bottom. It came with all of the cords that is needed to plug into my laptop for functionality and talking to it. It has a camera here. I'll be honest, I have not been able to get the camera to work consistently, but I'm using the offline software. That's probably why. You know, all of the stuff here for the ducting. So I'm going to just move the camera along so you can see that this white thing here is the filtration unit. So it's sucking the air out of the machine as it's cutting and engraving and pumping it out. So we're just going to pan up that way. And of course, my super professional trash can setup here, I'm just pushing it out of the garage, right? You don't need anything overly fancy. You know, if you have the space in your garage, you can tell from my garage, it's rather spacious, so I have this extra area where I can play around with crazy awesome things like this. So I don't actually do much to pre-treat the wood. You can do a lot of different techniques to go ahead and paint it, to stain it, whatever you want to do. For this, I'm actually going to wood stain everything once I'm done, so I'm not going to worry about it. One thing I would advise, this is not painter's tape, it's duct tape. I would get a duct tape or very strong magnets so you can kind of hold things down. Not all pieces of wood are going to be perfectly flush, and if it bounces around at all, or if it's slightly uneven, like in the middle, then the laser might hit it. So first thing I do is I go ahead and I open up the machine. You guys are going to get a really good view of me doing this. I take off this cover. This cover comes with Velcro straps around it. Now you don't need to have those Velcro straps on it all the time because it's magnetic. I'm fine with that. A lot of people will take this thing off and they will laser without it. But that puts your mirrors and the focus unit at risk of getting very dirty. I still clean them every day after I'm done with just a Q-tip and some alcohol. And it doesn't really take a whole lot in terms of maintenance. And I will impress on you that this thing came ready out of the box for us to start working with. I can't emphasize that enough. So anywho, so basically this piece I take off because the laser is right here, this little nozzle here. For a close-up of the laser unit, just so you know what's in here, this is actually your laser. This is what you're going to want to line up the edge of your material with so that you know about where your starting point is. Because again, like I said, I haven't been able to get consistent with the camera. So I just do old school machine embroidery techniques to trace or lay down a line or whatever. And I will talk about these tips and tricks in other videos. I don't want to like overload you guys. You've got mirrors here and here. That's what you need to keep clean. And then this little chunk right here is white lithium grease. That's another little bit of a product that you will probably want to buy so that you can grease all of the railings that the unit is moving along. And yeah, that's just typical machine maintenance. So with that cover off, I can now go ahead and get this thing kind of lined up the way that I want. I did put some marks on the honeycomb, so I'm kind of cheating once I kind of figure out where things should go. The very back wall of the honeycomb here is actually the topmost that it can go. The honeycomb needs to stay in here, right? Unless you need to take it out to clean it. And periodically you will want to do that. There's a drawer in the front. You just pull it open. It's really easy. So I'm going to go ahead and place the wood back down in here. It's kind of hard from this angle, but I also don't want to put my butt in the camera. And I'm going to line it up because I don't go all the way over, and nor are these pieces the same size as the honeycomb. So then I just take bits of tape and I tape it down. Okay, so I didn't tape all the way across, and that's just because I'm only going to be cutting in this particular area, so I don't really need to go overboard and use all of the duct tape that I have. I did get blue duct tape, though, only because it's easier to kind of see in there, and I just felt a little sketch about anything like reflective. So once you have it all in place, you can then go back to the software and do a trace to confirm the placement, and I do that prior to putting this back on. So shut the lid, because for the safety operations, it will not function if this lid is open. If you open this lid while it's running, it will full stop and cancel. Real quick, before we get started, this is the remote unit for controlling the air filter. I just put it on here with a magnet, and I just stick it on there. This button, that's impressive. There we go. This is my fault. This right here, when you get your machine in the US, this is a safety mechanism. So a US distributed Gweikecloud is going to just not work. It's not going to turn on or do anything. I absolutely was in a panic. This here, you need to turn it in order to unlock it so that it can be used. Also important to note, this is your emergency button. If anything goes wrong in there, like say burning cardboard, slam this button. This is your go, no go button. So like I said, I use Lightburn 1.3. So that basically means that because of the USB driver issue from GWI right now, I can't use Lightburn to control the machine, but I do use it to get all of my layers done and to use some of the more powerful controls they have over here, while GWI works on kind of fleshing out the functionality that's available in their tool. So here I have the design for the coaster, and this is going to be our fill, otherwise known as engraving layer, and then the red line on the outside is going to be our cut. So that's kind of important to understand. These terms that they use in Lightburn don't translate over to their software as easily as you would think. So I'm going to go up in Lightburn, and I'm going to go to File and Export. And I'm just going to export it to whatever it is that I need. So we're going to do Oga's coaster 3.dxf. Now I have it exported to a DXF file, which I can then open up the Gweikecloud software and I can import it. There's the import button here. You can also go to File and import directly. I will emphasize the cloud version of the software can bring in PNG files, PDF files, Illustrator, etc. This is their offline software, so it is slightly different, although it is a lot more powerful. So I'm going to go ahead and drag the DXF in here. Now it does understand that there were separate layers. However, sometimes it doesn't like persist the settings. So what I do is I go through and I make sure that the settings are correct. Specifically, I will engrave and then I will cut. So I need to make sure that those are lined up correctly. So I am going to go into laser scan, and I'm actually going to do this at 200 millimeters per second and 30% power. And then for the cut, I'm going to do a 7 millimeters per second speed with a 50% power. I try very hard not to use more than 50% power. I would like my CO2 laser to last longer than 2 weeks. So we're going to go ahead and close that. And that is basically correct. Now, since we're starting with a fresh board, and bear in mind, I'm using a laptop with a trackpad. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move it up to the top left, or the right. Which side? Military right. Okay, there we go. All right, so one thing to bear in mind is that if you're doing a cut along one of the edges, you want to stay within 10 millimeters. So I have my grid set up for 10 millimeters, so this will be fairly safe. And basically, I have the file ready to go, but if I want to verify what it's going to look like, I'm going to go up here to preview, and it will actually show me a preview of what it's going to look like and about how long it's going to take. So that's pretty darn cool. You can also simulate it. This is very, again, like I was saying, it's very similar to machine embroidery software. So I've got that all in place. So let's go ahead now that we have a design here, and we're going to do a trace so that we can see what the outline is going to be of the material that's going to get used. So the tracing option is located down at the bottom under laser work. This is where you can actually tell the machine what to do. So you do not want to cut scale, or at least I don't want to. I want to go scale. So see, as I'm trying to help you with all of this, you are going to click Go Scale. It's going to talk to the machine real quickly, and then you can tell it how fast or slow you want it to go. And I usually tell like minimum enclosing rectangle. But if you want just broad strokes to make sure that you're good to go, this is what you can do. And I just do 50 millimeters per second, and I'm going to hit OK, and the machine is going to start doing its thing. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to watch this move into place. That's just going to do our bounds check really quickly. And you notice I zoomed in a bit so you guys can make sure that you can actually see where the laser head is going. That's very important. So normally after I verify that the trace is going to be fine, what I'll do is I'll put this cover back on for the purposes of the video so you can actually see the laser at work. I'm going to leave this off. It's okay to leave this off. It just means you have to clean right after you're done. But I just leave it on so I don't have to worry about that as much as, normal use. But it does do a really good job of blocking the camera. In your Gweikecloud offline software, the next step is going to be to go over to test. I don't know why it's called test. I press the current position button and I verify these positions here. I want Z to be at 0 because that means it's at home, it's at base. Now, here's something that you need to know about focus and the offset field here. Okay, so let's talk about the focus and what I mean by that. So we were just checking the Z height of the laser head to make sure it's sitting at home, which means it's sitting at 0. And in this universe, Z is pointing down. So for anybody who hates 3D math as much as I do, this stuff isn't going to work. So we're going to have X like this going that way, Y going that way, and Z going that way. So you're gonna, if you have the honeycomb unit sitting down, that is 17 millimeters. So whatever material you set on top of it, you need to then set your offset differently. So if you were to put a piece of paper down, that's going to be sitting at 17 millimeters for your focus. However, what I'm going to be cutting into today is 1/4-inch wood. So 6.35 millimeters, I believe, if I was using something other than freedom units, which I love to joke about on my stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm rounding up because I do not want errors, because if I took 17 and I've subtracted 6 millimeters, then I would only set my focus at 11 and I would be closer to the material, which could cause burning, more charring, or if it's not even or level, it could actually rub up against it and cause scratches and damage the output feature. So we don't want to do that. So that's why I round up. So if I take 17 millimeters for the honeycomb's height, and then I subtract 7 millimeters for the wood, I'm at 10 millimeters for my focus, otherwise known as the offset if you're using the Gweikecloud offline software. So now that we know what our focus is going to be, and we have already confirmed the current position, I'm going to put my offset in here. 14 millimeters is the offset that I use for 3 millimeter products, or, you know, like an eighth of an inch. So I'm going to put 10 in here. And then I'm going to click Z minus, which is going to take the offset of whatever you're hitting here. It defaults to 1, but if you put the offset here, then, and that's all you need to change, you press Z minus, and it's going to talk to the machine. Give it a second because, you know, it's only moving 50 millimeters a second. And then I double check it by pressing current position and make sure I'm sitting at 10 millimeters. So this is, again, just my workflow. Once I am ready to go, I can just press start and it's going to start doing the thing. Cool, so it's all done now. So now dialing in cutting settings can take a while. And I do advise that people do an engrave and cut test on the materials they want to use because every laser is different. And the cut settings that work for me might not work for you. Or if you get a different brand of material, some have more glue spots in them, for example, like plywood here. So I open up the machine and I just do a real quick like turn test. Sometimes when you're recording, like if you're looking at it, because if you like to watch it burn like I do, you'll see it drop after it's done cutting. And that's basically cut through. If it's not completely cut through, don't lift any of the material. Just close this back up, hide the layer that was the engraving, and only do the cut again. Sometimes you need a second pass. There's thicker materials, or like I said with plywood, there's glue spots. But if everything's okay, like with these, sometimes I don't need to like lift them and take them out right away, and I'll leave them and I'll do a whole set of coasters. But for this one, just, you know, I just pull it out of here because I'm going to reuse this. I'm going to keep going and make more coasters. So I'm just going to try to wiggle it out of there. And I have an Oga's Cantina coaster. So I know this content is different from what I typically do in the channel, but again, I'm not just sewing. I also 3D print, play violin, and do other crafty things. So I like to highlight all of that. I am going to tie this into bag making for those of you who have paid attention all the way to the end of the video. Thank you very much for holding your attention. But there's so many things that can be done here. Engraving leather patches and making bag tags or charms or my own acrylic templates. So yeah, what I would like you to do is leave comments below, questions or topics you would like me to cover, like how do I finish the coasters after it's been laser cut and engraved? Like, what do I do? Why are there burn marks all over the bantha? Things like that. The other thing is, if you're interested in buying one, Jiwi was kind enough to give me an affiliate code with a coupon for $150 off. They're already on sale right now as of the recording of this video. So if you decide to dive right in and just like get up and running with a laser cutter that isn't $9,000, then this is your chance. So because not only is it $6,000 less than the top of the line competitor, but it's got a coupon and a sale right now. So jump on in if you want to. I've got all that information down in the description below. Please feel free to like and subscribe, hit the bell, blah, 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 all that YouTube crap. But thank you very much. And don't forget to leave comments below so I know what topics you'd like me to cover in the world of laser cutting.